Science 5, Quarter 3, Week 7 to 8, Electromagnetism. Most essential learning competency: design an experiment to determine the factors that affect the strength of the electromagnet. In the previous lesson, you have learned that in series circuit, electric current flows through a single path. So when one bulb is loosened or busted, all the other bulbs in the circuit will not light anymore. The loosened or busted bulb breaks or opens the pathway, so electricity cannot flow through it. A parallel circuit, on the other hand, has light bulbs with different loops. Thus, each bulb is a part of a different circuit. When one bulb is loosened, taken, or burned out, the other bulbs still light up. This is because each bulb has its own pathway. This time, you will learn about electromagnetism. Let us look at the illustration carefully. The simple electromagnet. Electromagnetism is the study of electromagnetic force. Electricity and magnets are closely related to each other. Electricity can produce magnets, while magnets can produce electricity. A magnet is usually made of iron. It can attract objects such as pins, coins, and other materials made of iron and steel. Annealed iron is not a magnet, but it can be turned into one. This is done by coiling a wire around it and then letting electricity flow through it. Doing this turns the nail into an electromagnet. An electromagnet attracts like a real magnet. It can attract materials made of metals like pins and tamtak. The iron nail acts as a magnet while electricity is flowing through the coil of wire. When electricity stops flowing through the coil to the nail, can the nail still attract the pin and tampak? No, it can no longer attract the pin and the tamtaks. The electromagnets are temporary magnets. When electricity stops flowing through a coil of wires, the nail stops attracting any metal or magnetic material. An electromagnet can be made stronger by using more coils of wire. Each turn of the wire adds more force to the electromagnet. The number of dry cells also affects the strength of electromagnet. More dry cells mean more electrons flowing in the electromagnet and therefore stronger magnetism is produced. Magnets in different industries and businesses are usually used in electromagnet-powered devices, such as cranes, cutters, fax machines, computers, and etc. Powerful cranes use electromagnets to move scrap iron and steel or separate metals for recycling. Generators in power plants rely on magnets like the ones found in electric motors to produce electricity. Transformers, devices that use electromagnets to change high voltage electricity to low voltage electricity or vice versa, are often used at homes and in offices. Some transportation systems use magnets too. Trains, subways, trolleys, and monorails are examples of this. Scientists and engineers have even developed maglev trains which use electromagnets to float above the tracks. This then eliminates friction, which helps the trains run faster than ordinary trains. For our first learning task, help Ellie and Maggie collect objects which are needed to make an electromagnet. Encircle the objects. And these are the answers. We have battery holder, alligator clip, copper wire, paper clips, dry cell, or end nails. Questions. Number 1. Explain why Ellie and Maggie should use those materials for the electromagnet. Number 2, how will they test the strength of their electromagnet? With the materials they gathered, how will Ellie and Maggie increase the strength of their electromagnet? Number 3, how will they remove the things which will stick to the electromagnet? Number 4, will they get the same result if they will use the other materials in the maze? Rope, wooden stick, pebbles, and why? And these are the answers. For number 1, Ellie and Maggie should use those materials for the electromagnet in order to attract materials just like a real magnet. Number 2, it depends on the electricity that passes through it. You can increase the strength of their electromagnet by the number of batteries and coils of the wire around the nail. And number 3, they can remove the iron nail or the coils of wire on the battery. And number 4, no, because they are not made of iron or metal. For our next learning task, number 2, prepare the materials listed, and if not available, you may use other materials at home to perform the activity. You may ask the help of your parents, guardians, or any adult members of the family if needed. And the activity that you are going to perform will clearly determine the factors that affect the strength of the electromagnet. You need the following materials: one battery, electrical wire, thumbtacks, one large iron nails, and pins. Make sure that the iron nail does not have any rust and be careful in handling materials. First procedure: make an electromagnet by winding the electrical wire around the large nail. Number 2, connect both ends of the wire to the dry cell. Number 3, test the electromagnet by placing some pins and thumbtacks near the nail. Does the nail attract the pins and thumbtack? Number 4, loosen the coil of wire in electromagnet and find out how many metals are attracted to the nail. Now, wind more coils of wire and which that attract more metals. And more dry. For fifth, add more dry cell to the electromagnet. Make sure you connect the dry cells properly and which setup attracts more metals. And number 6, change the nail into a smaller one, which setup attracts more metal. Let us watch the video about that activity or experiment. In the experiment, I use a battery, 1.5 volt, one small iron nail, then copper wire, and then safety pin, small battery used in watch, and needle. Let us answer some questions about that video or activity. What is the effect of the following variables in the strength of an electromagnet? Number 1, tightness of the wire coil around the nail. Number 2, number of coils of wire around the nail. Number 3, number of dry cells used. And number 4, size of nails. And these are the correct answers. Number one, attracts like a magnet or adds more force. Number two, increases strength or force. Number three, increases strength or more electrons flow. And number four, stronger magnetism. For learning task number three, list down appliances that are commonly used at home and put a check mark on the appliances where electromagnetism is applied. Choose one appliance from your list and explain how electromagnetism is applied. And these are some answers. We have electric fan, radio, television, refrigerator, washing machine, and washing machine. We have here electric fan. The electric fan makes use of electromagnetism on its motor. The altering electromagnetic fields generate an interaction between the electromagnet and the rotor at the back of the fan, making the blades of the fan spin. For learning task number 4, draw a device using electromagnet. Then explain how it can be useful for home, school, or community. Consider the rubric in doing the task. 5 points if the drawing and explanation represent a clear understanding of the concept. 4 points, the drawing and explanation represent a somewhat clear understanding of the concept. 3 points, the drawing and explanation represent a quite clear understanding of the concept. 2 points, the drawing and explanation do not represent the concept learned. And 1 point, the drawing and explanation lack details. And this is an example of an answer to that activity. An electric bell has an electromagnet. It creates sound that make people aware if there is outside their house. It uses in school as a signal of starting or dismissing class. To summarize our lesson, again, electromagnetism is the study of electromagnetic force. Electromagnets attracts like a real magnet. It can be made stronger by using more coils of wire. It is a temporary magnet and it can attract materials made of metals like pins and tampak. For our last learning task number 5. Read each item carefully and choose the letter of your answer. Number 1. Why is the wire used in an electromagnet coil? Letter A, it has more force. B, it controls the flow of electricity. C, it controls the field of attraction. Letter D, it makes the electromagnet stronger. And number 2, which of the following can make an electromagnet stronger? Letter A, by adding more dry cells. Letter B, by increasing the number of turns into the coil of wires. C, by using a coil with a bigger diameter. Or letter D, all of the above. And these are the correct answers. For number 1, letter D. Number 2, letter D. For number 3, which of the following devices make use of electromagnets? A, telephone, B, electric bell, C, electric buzzer, or D, all of the above are the choices. Number 4, which of the following is not part of an electromagnet? Letter A, the coiled wire. Letter B, the dry cell as the source of electricity. Letter C, the pins attracted by electromagnet. Or letter D, the nail as the core. And number 5, what happens when a part of an electromagnet is disconnected? A, it loses its magnetism. B, electricity continues to flow through it. Letter C, the electromagnet becomes a permanent magnet. Or letter D, there is an increase in the number of materials attracted. And these are the correct answers for number 3, D, 4, C, and 5A. And that ends our lesson for the week 7 to 8 Science 5 Quarter 3. Thanks for listening and happy learning. Bye-bye!